Even the mightiest gods have their missteps, literally. Thor, the famed god of thunder, is on his way to a grand feast in Asgard when he discovers his left boot. A dwarven-crafted relic of immense power is missing. Mortified by the thought of his fellow gods mocking him, Thor sets out across Midgard to retrieve it, determined to keep his mishap a secret. Enter Folki, a clever young shepherd who stumbles upon the frustrated god and offers his help. Together, the unlikely duo embarks on a journey filled with mischievous elves, a cryptic raven, and a particularly stubborn goat with a taste for enchanted footwear. Welcome to Hugin and Munin Stories. This is our story, Thor's Lost Boot, a tale of thunder and blunder. Chapter 1. The Missing Boot. The fields of Midgard stretched wide beneath a dawn sky brushed with golden hues. Morning dew clung to the tall grasses, glistening like gems in the sunlight. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, strode purposefully across the land, his towering figure casting a long shadow over the rolling hills. Birds scattered in his wake, their songs swallowed by the rumble of his heavy footsteps. His legendary hammer swung gently at his side, and the air around him seemed to hum faintly with the energy of distant storms. He had left Asgard early, eager to make the journey across the realms before the grand feast that awaited him. But something was amiss. A strange chill prickled his left foot, persistent enough to demand his attention. Thor paused mid-stride, brow furrowed, and glanced downward. His eyes widened as he let out a bellow that shook the hills. By the Nine Realms, where is my boot? His left foot, bare and exposed, was a sight rarely, if ever, seen by mortals or gods alike. The boot, crafted by the cunning hands of the dwarves, was more than a simple garment. It was enchanted with protective runes, able to withstand the heat of molten rock and the bite of frost giants' weapons. Losing it was not just an inconvenience, it was a disaster. And, perhaps worse, an embarrassment. Thor crouched low, scanning the ground as if expecting the boot to materialize before him. His fingers traced faint impressions in the soil, evidence of his earlier steps. Yet, no matter how far he retraced his path, the boot was nowhere to be found. As frustration mounted, Thor's temper flared. Sparks of lightning crackled faintly around his crimson beard, and the clouds above began to gather, their edges darkening in response to his mood. He muttered curses under his breath, berating himself for his carelessness. It was at that moment a voice called out from nearby, a small, cautious sound that pierced the thunderous silence Thor had created. Sir? Are you, lost? Thor turned sharply, his piercing gaze falling upon a boy standing a short distance away. Barefoot and dressed in a tattered tunic, the boy held a crooked shepherd's staff in one hand. His sheep huddled behind him, their woolly forms trembling as if sensing the power radiating from the towering figure before them. The boy, though small and mortal, did not flee. His brown eyes, wide with curiosity, darted between Thor's hammer and his conspicuously bare foot. The sight of the god, red-bearded, thunderous, and most strangely missing a boot was both terrifying and oddly comical. Thor straightened, brushing the dust from his leather tunic. Lost? The god of thunder is never lost, he declared, though his voice carried a hint of defensiveness. The boy tilted his head, unconvinced. Then why are you pacing the fields like a man who's misplaced something important? Thor hesitated, his pride battling his predicament. After a moment he sighed, the sound more like the rumble of distant thunder. Very well, mortal. I have misplaced my boot. But it is no ordinary boot. It is a gift from the dwarves, crafted with their finest magic. Its losses. Inconvenient. The boy blinked, his initial fear giving way to incredulity. A god losing his boot? That's unexpected. Thor glared at him, but there was no malice in his eyes. What is your name, boy? Folki, the boy replied, clutching his staff a little tighter. Well, Folki, since you seem so keen to observe my predicament, perhaps you can also aid me in resolving it, Thor said, crossing his arms. Folki hesitated, glancing at his sheep, who bleated nervously. Then he looked back at Thor, a flicker of excitement replacing his initial wariness. If I help you find your boot, will you tell me stories of Asgard? My father says the gods never visit Midgard anymore. Thor huffed, though there was a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. Help me, and you shall have your stories, boy. But mark my words, this is no ordinary search. The gods do not lose things lightly, and what is lost is often found in the strangest of places. Folki grinned, already envisioning the tales he would bring back to his village. He gestured toward the fields ahead. Well, Lord Thor, let's find your boot before someone else does. The sheep, perhaps. Or worse, a goat. Thor scowled at the thought, but he followed as Folki led the way, the shepherd boy's sharp eyes scanning the earth for any trace of the missing relic. The unlikely pair set off into the hills, their journey beginning with the most mundane of tasks, yet destined to unfold into an adventure neither could anticipated. Chapter 2. Mischief in the Forest. The rolling hills soon gave way to the shadowed expanse of a forest, where sunlight filtered through the canopy in fractured streams of gold. The air grew cooler, scented with the tang of pine and the damp musk of earth. Thor walked with his usual thunderous stride, his one-booted foot crunching against fallen leaves and twigs, while his bare foot padded softly, eliciting an occasional muttered complaint. Beside him, Folki moved with the light step of a shepherd accustomed to roaming wild terrain. His sharp eyes scanned the ground for signs, but his curiosity couldn't be contained. Lord Thor, Folki began cautiously, how does one lose a boot enchanted by dwarves? Or wouldn't it cling to your foot with magic? Thor grunted, his pride stung. A fair question, boy, but dwarven magic is finicky. Powerful, yes, but sometimes too clever for its own good. They designed the boots to loosen when one's foot swells. Folki stifled a laugh, glancing at Thor's towering frame. Swelled? From what? Too much walking? Thor growled, though the corners of his mouth twitched. A long night of feasting in Asgard. Mead has a way of overindulging the body. It's a lesson even gods must occasionally relearn. The boy chuckled, his fear of the thunder god gradually giving way to a sense of camaraderie. But their banter was cut short when Folki froze, pointing to a cluster of bushes ahead. Look there, he whispered. Thor squinted, his keen eyes following Folki's gesture. Among the leaves, tiny footprints pressed into the soft earth, their shapes delicate yet unmistakable. Elves, Thor muttered, his voice laced with irritation. Do they steal boots? Folki asked, wide-eyed. They steal anything that amuses them, Thor replied, stepping forward. And they're clever enough to evade most who come looking, but they won't evade me. They followed the trail deeper into the forest until it opened into a small glade. There, beneath the boughs of an ancient oak, a group of mischievous elves lounged in the dappled sunlight. Their features were sharp and delicate, their clothes shimmering like woven starlight. One of them juggled acorns with a dexterity that seemed almost magical, while another played a lilting tune on a reed pipe. At the sight of Thor, the elves froze, their wide eyes darting between the god and the boy at his side. Then, as if by unspoken agreement, they broke into laughter. Well, well, one of them called, standing and bowing mockingly. The mighty Thor graces us with his presence. And what brings the Thunderer to our humble forest? Lost your way, or perhaps lost something else. Thor's eyes narrowed, and a faint crackle of lightning rippled around him. Enough games, tricksters. I know you have my boot. Return it now, and I'll leave you unharmed. The elves exchanged amused glances before another stepped forward, twirling a sprig of ivy in her delicate fingers. Your boot, dear god. Oh, we had it. Such a fine piece of craftsmanship. But we misplaced it. Thor's fist clenched. Misplaced it. Where? The elf shrugged with a smirk. A raven took it from us. It seemed quite taken with your little shoe. Flew off toward the cliffs. Thor's patience wore thin, and the ground trembled faintly beneath his feet. Folki, sensing the god's rising anger, stepped forward. Why take the boot in the first place, he asked, his voice steady despite the tension. The elves turned their attention to the boy, their smirks softening into curiosity. Why does the wind take leaves, little shepherd? We elves are creatures of whimsy. We saw a thing that did not belong to the earth, and thought to give it an adventure. Alas, the adventure continues without us. Thor groaned, rubbing his temples. You will regret your whimsy, tricksters. Mark my words. Before he could summon a storm to make good on his threat, Folki tugged at his arm. Lord Thor, let's go. They're not lying about the raven, and the longer we wait, the farther it flies. Thor hesitated, glaring at the elves, who now lounged with exaggerated ease. With a final, thunderous huff, he turned and began striding toward the cliffs. Folki hurried to keep pace, glancing over his shoulder at the elves, who waved cheerfully as they departed. They're not afraid of you, are they? Folki asked once they were out of earshot. Afraid? Thor scoffed. Elves are too foolish to know fear, but they'll think twice before playing tricks on me again. As they emerged from the forest and the cliffs loomed in the distance, Thor's irritation slowly gave way to determination. If this raven truly has my boot, then we'll find it. And if it doesn't, then you'll summon a storm to blow it out of the sky. Folki suggested with a grin. Thor smirked despite himself. You catch on quickly, boy. Perhaps there's more to you than meets the eye. Folki beamed, and together they pressed on toward the cliffs, their unlikely partnership deepening with every step. Chapter 3. The Raven's Clue. The forest eventually thinned, giving way to a rocky expanse that sloped upward toward the cliffs. The sound of waves crashing far below mingled with the distant cries of seabirds, filling the air with a sense of wild, untamed majesty. Thor and Folki paused at the base of the cliffs, their gazes drawn upward to a jagged perch where a raven sat silhouetted against the sky. There, Thor said, his voice a low rumble. The thief awaits. Folki squinted, shading his eyes against the sunlight. It's just sitting there. Do you think it knows we're coming? Thor grunted, gripping his hammer. Ravens are no ordinary birds, boy. They are Odin's creatures, harbingers of wisdom and mischief. If it has my boot, it knows exactly why we're here. The boy hesitated. Do you think it's one of his ravens? Hugin or Munin? Thor laughed, a booming sound that echoed off the cliffs. Hardly. Those two have better things to do than steal footwear. But all ravens share the master's cunning. Determined, the pair began their ascent. The path was narrow and treacherous, with loose stones that threatened to give way underfoot. Thor climbed effortlessly, his godly strength unyielding even on the most unstable terrain. Folki, however, found the climb a challenge. Careful, boy, Thor called back as Folki stumbled, catching himself on a jagged rock. I'm fine, the boy replied breathlessly, though his knuckles were white from gripping his staff. Not all of us have dwarven boots to steady us. Thor chuckled, offering a hand to help the boy over a particularly steep section. You've got spirit, Folki. I'll grant you that. As they neared the raven's perch, the bird turned its head, its beady black eyes watching their approach with unnerving intelligence. It let out a sharp call, spreading its wings in a show of dominance. Thor planted his feet firmly on the ledge and pointed a finger at the bird. "You there, Raven? Do you have my boot?" The raven tilted its head, as if considering the question before letting out a low, guttural croak. To Folki's astonishment, the sound twisted into words. "Your boot, son of Odin? A curious treasure to lose. But no, it is not here." Folki gasped. "It speaks." Thor folded his arms. "A gift from Odin's wisdom. Now, Raven, speak plainly. If you do not have my boot, where is it?" The raven hopped along the ledge, its claws clicking against the stone. "The elves told you true. I carried the boot from their mischievous hands, for I thought it unwise to leave such an item with their kind. But I tired of it. The forest's edge is where I left it." Thor's eyes narrowed. "What sort of trickery is this? You carried it all this way only to abandon it." The raven let out a raspy chuckle. "A boot, even one of dwarven make, is of little interest to me. But to you, it is a puzzle, a lesson. Seek it where the forest meets the stream. There you shall find the end of your journey." Thor bristled, his impatience flaring. "Riddles and games. I should pluck your feathers and—" "Wait." Folki interrupted, stepping between Thor and the raven. "What harm is there in listening? It gave us a direction, didn't it?" The raven tilted its head toward Folki, as if appraising him. "The boy is clever, Thunderer. Perhaps clever enough to teach you a thing or two." Thor growled but lowered his hand from Mjolnir. "Very well, but if your words lead me astray, Raven, I'll not be so forgiving." The raven let out another chuckle and spread its wings. "Then hurry, son of Odin, for time moves swiftly, and so do goats." With a final call, the bird leapt into the air, its dark form vanishing into the sky. "Goats?" Folki repeated, his brow furrowed. Thor sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "This day grows stranger by the hour. Come, boy. Let us see what madness awaits us at the stream." The descent from the cliffs proved easier than the climb, though Thor's mood remained as stormy as ever. Folki, on the other hand, found himself grinning. "Do you think the raven was right? Could a goat really have your boot?" Thor shook his head, his long hair whipping in the breeze. If so, he'll wish it hadn't. By the time they reached the forest's edge, the sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson. The stream babbled softly, its waters reflecting the fiery glow of the setting sun. Folki scanned the area, his sharp eyes darting between the rocks and shrubs. "There," he exclaimed, pointing to a cluster of bushes where something leather glinted faintly. Thor stepped forward, his heart lifting with hope, only for it to sink again as the bushes rustled and a familiar bleat echoed through the clearing. "A goat," Folki said, trying and failing to suppress a laugh. Thor groaned, his hand going to his temple. "Of course it's a goat." Chapter 4. The Chewed Boot. The goat emerged from the bushes, its sturdy frame covered in coarse, earth-streaked fur. It was a particularly feisty creature, with curved horns and a defiant glint in its eye. Between its teeth, unmistakably, was Thor's dwarven boot, dangling from its mouth like a prized trophy. Folki burst into laughter, doubling over as he pointed at the goat. "Bruna, of course it's you. She's the ringleader of my flock, always causing trouble." Thor, on the other hand, stood in stunned silence, his gaze fixed on the goat chewing on his enchanted footwear. The humor of the situation was utterly lost on him. She's eating my boot," Thor said, his voice low and disbelieving. Folki wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. "Don't worry, Lord Thor. Dwarven craftsmanship is tougher than any goat's teeth. See." He gestured to Bruna's stubborn efforts, her teeth unable to make more than faint scratches on the leather. Thor's scowl deepened as Bruna darted back into the bushes, clearly intent on keeping her newfound treasure. Without hesitation, the thunder god stomped after her, his heavy footfalls shaking the ground. "Bruna!" Folki called, running after him. "She'll give it back. Just let me." But Thor was already wrestling through the underbrush, muttering curses about goats and their insolence. Bruna darted this way and that, nimbly evading his grasp as if mocking the god. "Enough of this nonsense," Thor bellowed, raising his hammer above his head. The sky darkened instantly, clouds swirling as thunder rumbled ominously. Folki skidded to a stop, panic flashing across his face. "Wait, don't smite her. She's just a goat." Thor hesitated, the clouds pausing their descent. He turned to Folki, who stepped forward with hands raised. "Bruna's stubborn, but she can be reasoned with, kind of. Let me try." The boy crouched low, pulling a handful of fresh grass from the ground. He whistled softly, a melodic sound that seemed to calm the restless goat. Bruna stopped her antics, her ears flicking toward the boy. Slowly, cautiously, Folki extended the grass. "Come on, Bruna," he coaxed. "You've had your fun. Give it back, and I'll make sure Thor doesn't turn you into a thunderbolt." Bruna snorted but took a tentative step forward. Her jaw worked the boot one last time before she dropped it unceremoniously at Folki's feet, chomping on the offered grass instead. "There," Folki said triumphantly, holding up the slightly damp but otherwise intact boot. "No harm done." Thor snatched the boot from the boy's hands, inspecting it closely. The runes etched into the leather glimmered faintly, their magic unharmed. He sighed deeply, relief mingling with lingering irritation. "You've spared her from my wrath, boy. She should thank you." Bruna, oblivious to her narrow escape, let out a contented bleat and wandered back to her flock. Folki grinned. "She has her own ways of saying thanks, I'm sure." Thor slid the boot onto his foot, testing its fit. The familiar weight and balance returned instantly, and a faint hum of power coursed through him. His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time all day, a small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Well done, Folki," he said, clapping the boy on the shoulder with enough force to nearly topple him. "You've proven yourself worthy of standing beside a god." Folki beamed, his chest swelling with pride. "It was an honor, Lord Thor. Though, I think I'll leave goat wrangling to mortals." Thor laughed, the sound booming across the clearing. "Wise choice, boy. Now I must return to Asgard before Loki hears of this and turns it into one of his tales." He reached into a pouch at his belt, pulling out a small, gleaming charm shaped like a thunderbolt. It sparkled faintly, as if infused with a fragment of lightning itself. "Take this," Thor said, placing the charm in Folki's hand. "It will bring you strength and courage when you need it most. And know this, as long as I draw breath, no harm shall come to you or your kin." Folki stared at the charm in awe, feeling a faint warmth radiate from it. "Thank you, Lord Thor. I'll treasure it always." With his boot restored and his mood lightened, Thor prepared to leave. He stepped into the clearing, turning to look at Folki one last time. "You've done well today, boy. Remember, heroism isn't just about strength. Sometimes wit and heart are what truly matter." Before Folki could respond, Thor leapt into the air, his boots glowing with runic power. Lightning cracked across the sky as he disappeared into the clouds, leaving Folki standing alone with his flock. The boy looked down at the charm in his hand, a grin spreading across his face. He turned to Bruna, who was chewing lazily on a tuft of grass. "Well, Bruna, what do you think? Will anyone believe us?" The goat let out a low bleat, as if to say not a chance. Folki laughed, tucking the charm into his tunic. He herded his flock toward home, already imagining the incredulous faces of his family when he told them how he helped a god find his missing boot. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the boy walked with a newfound confidence, knowing that even the smallest among mortals could stand tall beside the mightiest of gods. And with that, we say goodbye for this time. Thank you for listening to our story Thor's Lost Boot, a tale of thunder and blunder.